Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Audio Product Development Alliance. I'm Roger Shively from Shively Acoustics International, and this is the APDA, your gateway to audio product development. Today's topic is Bluetooth LE audio, Auracast, and product development strategies. Joining us today is Josh Toole, CEO and Principal Engineer from Cloud2GND. Welcome, Josh.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate you having me on the program.
Yeah.
Excited for the conversation.
We're happy to have you here. And in addition to Josh, online with us from the APDA is Dave Lindberg from DB Enterprises and the THD podcast. Hey, Dave.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning and good evening. And then also from LinkPlay, we have Steve Willenberg. Hi, Steve. How you doing?
Roger, how you doing? Josh, looking forward to the conversation. It's a pretty exciting topic.
Yep.
Yeah, great.
We'd also like to thank Joel Martins from Audio Express, our media partner, and Adam Levinson from Levinson Consulting. And if you don't know the APDA, the Audio Product Development Alliance is the only organization focused exclusively on audio product development education, providing current, relevant content that can be experienced in person, live online, and on demand. Combining with various cross-industry knowledge sharing, the APDA serves as a networking hub for the audio industry, offering access to experts and colleagues for professional development. So essentially at the APDA is where we come to learn how to build relationships and better audio products. We talk about manufacturing, design, measurement, simulation, supply chain, automotive applications, headphones, earphones, wireless technology, and even touch on industry standards. So we also like to thank Spencer in the background who's producing us today for this talk. It is being recorded, so we can watch it later on our YouTube channel. And you can come back and watch it at any time, share it, like it, join us often. And you can also request to join the APDA. If you aren't a member already, we'd love to have you join us and become a member. You can join our LinkedIn group if you like, or let me bring that up. You can join our LinkedIn group, and you can go to our webpage as well. And you can also become a member through that link and also sponsor. We are independent profit nonprofit, so you can join us and become a member or a sponsor as well. So with all that out of the way, Josh, let's start with you. Let's get maybe a little bit of background on Cloud2GND and on yourself as well. So welcome, Josh.
Yeah, thank you. Let me share some slides here and go through a little bit about Cloud2GND and who we are. So Cloud2GND, we're an engineering services company. We started out of another company I worked at. I started in Bluetooth in about 2006, about 20 years ago now. So long history in Bluetooth, and before that, I was doing other types of wireless embedded systems and wireless connectivity. I have an engineering background. I was with a early Bluetooth stack provider called Stone Street One. We produced a host stack there called Bluetopia, and Bluetopia was used by a number of different semiconductor companies and product companies in this is at the very beginning, sort of serial cable replacement days of Bluetooth, before Bluetooth was synonymous with audio, certainly where it went. And started there and worked with them until that company was acquired. They were acquired by Qualcomm around 2013, and we spun out Cloud2GND, took sort of a team from that company to help continue to support that stack with other companies. We still have a relationship with Texas Instruments today that continues to use that stack. And in that earlier work I did, I got involved with the Bluetooth SIG, was involved in the CAR working group with automotive standards for Bluetooth, and started working with the specifications. That's something which at Cloud2GND has become part of what we do. We do a lot of work with the Bluetooth specifications. We're also involved in continuing to support a number of semiconductor companies in stack development, as well as working with product companies on Bluetooth product development. So those are really kind of the three main pillars of the business. protocol and chipset enablement, doing Bluetooth stack development, product development, working with product companies to develop Bluetooth products and standards and specifications, and our work with the Bluetooth SIG. And so we see ourselves as an important sort of stakeholder for the ecosystem as a whole. We're always looking for opportunities to advance Bluetooth and the technology rather than just the interest of one particular perspective, if you will, on Bluetooth technology. So we've grown a lot from those early days. We've been in business now for about 13 years, and we have a global team. We do, again, stack development, product development, as well as now we've introduced some of our own products. We have a product called Aurawave, which is a software framework and a module that's intended to make it really easy for companies to develop LE audio-based products, a new generation of Bluetooth audio standards. And we can get into that a little bit. I'm happy to share a little bit about that platform, as well as talk a little bit about LE audio and the way the Bluetooth audio standards have evolved over the years.
Okay.
And Josh, can you expand a little bit about your support capabilities on a global basis? I mean, obviously, one of the keys is, as you're, working within these three pillars, there's going to be support on a localized basis. And I know you guys are much more than just a single entity in a single town.
That's right. Yeah, we have an engineering group in Romania. And so they're able to cover that region, European region, very well. As well as we have other team members throughout the globe. So we have a global footprint, allows us to be flexible in terms of support, region, time zone, across the globe.
So, yeah, a little bit of background, perhaps, you maybe touched on a little LE audio. We all know Bluetooth. I think at least by now we know Bluetooth. But what is LE audio?
Yeah, let me kind of give some context, and we can dig, deep or stay at the surface. Let's see where the conversation goes. But
Yeah.
Bluetooth traditionally started with what's often called Bluetooth Classic, or BR-EDR, which stands for Basic Rate and Enhanced Data Rate. Bluetooth Classic audio is typically based on two profiles, A2DP and hands-free. And A2DP is the Advanced Audio Distribution Profile that's used for stereo audio. So this is what Bluetooth is using under the covers when you connect a set of earbuds or a headphone or a speaker to a mobile device, or the hands-free profile, which is used for audio for phone calls. So that profile supports the ability to place calls, receive calls, and handle the audio. So Bluetooth Classic traditionally was built on this earlier radio standard called BR-EDR. And then a new standard was introduced called Bluetooth LE. Bluetooth LE is essentially a new radio architecture. It uses a fully new radio physical layer, and was initially designed really with a focus on, LE stands for low energy use cases with Bluetooth. So this was primarily sensors, fitness devices, things like that. LE continued to gain momentum, and there was a demand to look at using the LE physical layer, the LE audio, the LE radio for audio. Right, we had mobile devices typically contain essentially both radios. They have a Bluetooth Classic radio and an LE radio in the same device. But there was increased demand to move audio over to LE. Audio has really been the standard that has driven the classic side. Everything else had kind of moved over to LE. So LE audio is an initiative that started about 6 years ago now, probably even earlier, in the planning and design phases, to move the audio side of Bluetooth over to the LE radio architecture. With that, a lot of new enhancements, such as a new codec. The LC3 codec has been introduced. LC3 is much more efficient. It's able to achieve better audio quality at a lower bit rate than the original codecs that were used and standardized for A2DP and hands-free. LE Audio also introduces a number of new use cases for Bluetooth. things which some product manufacturers had addressed with proprietary solutions, like a true wireless stereo support to have two independent earbuds without a physical connection between them, the ability to do a broadcast use case. So these are really transformative new capabilities that came in with LE Audio. The native support for true wireless stereo use case, native support for broadcast, which is really a big one, and that's a big focus for cloud to ground. We think there's a lot of value in this new way of using Bluetooth for broadcast technology. And that's something that has really been driven initially by the hearing assistance industry. Got very involved in the early phases of the development of the LE Audio standards to drive Bluetooth as a standard solution for the next generation of hearing assistance devices. But we believe that the market and the potential for that technology goes even further.
Well, when you say hearing assistance, and I would assume that the early versions of the classic Bluetooth audio was still being used in that. So what's the advantage of the LE approach? You mentioned multi-streaming. So I mean, is it just more elegant, more lightweight in software, or what is or there just more opportunities to use enhanced audio from with the hearing assist? You're either you're listening impaired or you're listening in a noisy environment. So where's the advantage of LE over a classic Bluetooth at that point?
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes from the efficiency of the codec, the efficiency of the radio layer. So both bring tremendous efficiency in terms of power and bandwidth utilization. You're
Yeah.
going to get much better battery life, which is certainly for a miniature
Okay.
device, right, is
Yeah.
an important factor. You get much better battery life with an LE audio device. You get better sound quality. And then the new ecosystem really opens up a huge range of new use cases around what's called Auracast, which is Bluetooth's branding for the broadcast technology. The idea is that rather than traditionally Bluetooth used a point-to-point link, so while you may have Bluetooth in a hearing device or headphones, you typically just have a point-to-point connection with your mobile device. With Auracast technology, everything in your environment can be a broadcaster. The televisions at the gym, the announcements at an airport, the uh, presentation of a film or at a lecture hall at a university, all of those different streams of audio that are in our environment can each be their own broadcast stream. And with Auracast, I can navigate, identify, and connect to those streams using my mobile device as a discovery tool, right? I can see in my environment, here are the streams that are available to me. I can select a stream, and then my mobile device is not in the audio connection, but it simply tells my listening device, my receiver, my headphones, my hearing aid to tune into that particular stream, and I can easily switch between those streams. So
Okay.
this is where you have.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say, you mentioned the LE audio radio. Does that mean that in moving to this protocol, there was a new radio kind of hardware introduced to everyone that would be providing chips for this standard?
That's right, but that Bluetooth LE radio was already broadly adopted
Okay.
earlier than the LE audio standard. So you had Bluetooth LE, which was sort of originally driven for sensors, fitness devices, low power devices was really
Like
the initial
the
market.
Nordic stuff, all that? Right.
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
Nordic is one of our partners, and they produce exclusively LE based chips, right? So they don't support what's called dual mode. Basically, there are two classes of chips in the market. You have LE only chips and you have dual mode chips. And in just about any cell phone, you have a dual mode chip. Cell phone is able to communicate using either Bluetooth radio format standard, while many in devices like a headphone can save cost by using an LE only chip. LE only chips are typically much less expensive, more power efficient, smaller. So there's a lot of advantages as we move audio over to LE, cost, form factor, power efficiency for those end devices.
And
Okay,
Josh,
cool.
can you expand a little bit about the audio quality? Is there an improvement in audio quality through the various devices? And obviously, high res is the standard that people really want to get to. How does it approach that?
Yeah, LC3, which is the new codec that's been introduced, and there will be, just like with Bluetooth Classic audio, there also is the ability to use third-party codecs, as we saw with Bluetooth Classic, things like aptX and other codecs introduced. But LC3 itself is a substantial improvement over the original standard codecs for Bluetooth Classic. So right off the bat, I came up through that whole maturity of Bluetooth Classic audio. It was a rocky road sometimes, right? We had audio that was not stable, had gaps, or it had changes in the speed as people were dealing with sample rate adjustment, and all that stuff works way better now. The quality, certainly we got there with Bluetooth Classic as well with time, but the quality, the consistency, the connection times, that's a big significant difference now. Connection is very quick, seamless, switching between streams very quick and seamless. So there's improvements in almost every area in terms of quality and user experience with LE audio, versus traditional Bluetooth Classic. On top of that, this is really a foundation for new standards that are still in work today. That some of this stuff is publicly acknowledged now, that the Bluetooth SIG is working on new high data throughput technologies that will be used for audio. So we're looking at moving towards lossless audio codec and the ability to do lossless quality audio over Bluetooth with those new standards. That's all still coming down the road, but that's certainly a factor. And so there's a lot that we're building on here that's really going to expand the market for Bluetooth audio, again, beyond this traditional sort of point-to-point, my phone to my headphones use case. We have multi-channel audio support. So as you add additional bandwidth to the Bluetooth link, now we can do 5 channels. Now we can do 7.1, right? We start to have the ability to introduce new use cases that traditionally Bluetooth couldn't tackle.
Yeah, that's an exciting development. As people continue to develop their products, seeing this on the radar is really, really an exciting time.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. And it's the architecture is greatly improved as well. There's a lot of layering to the standards that allows using all of these great building blocks in different ways, to innovate around the product space.
and I think, Dave was maybe alluding to the fact too that there might be a lot of Bluetooth stacks out there. I'm sure there's more than a few. But recently you sort of, go ahead, Dave. Yeah.
I was gonna say, I thought that changed. So there used to be different stacks for different applications, but I thought everything's just treated like data. Like, and I'm very curious. Like, I'm trying to understand how is this protocol working? Because I heard that now it just treats it like data across the link, and it's not a special protocol for audio. Is that correct?
Well, there is still specific profiles, but I would say LE Audio has moved towards a little bit more of a building block architecture. There used to be kind of one way you did everything with Bluetooth Classic, and today we have a range of different components, profiles, and services that can be put together in different ways to build products. So there's a lot more flexibility. Um, they've introduced new transport layers that move the audio called isochronous channels. That is also much more flexible. So it's a lot of these pieces that have been introduced. They don't just deliver on the current use case, but they've been built so that we can deliver more functionality in the future. Isochronous channels, for example, can move audio data and it can move other types of data. So in the sense of what you're saying, it is a little bit agnostic to what that data is, what the codec is. But of course, Bluetooth ultimately, in my opinion, the success of Bluetooth is really around it as an interoperability standard. It's also important that product manufacturers understand, how do I build a product that will behave well with someone else's product, right? So there's still this emphasis on making sure that we know how to put those building blocks together, right, in a way that's going to give a user a consistent experience. And that's always a challenge, but that's something that everybody's been working really hard towards.
Okay. So quick question then. What I know is that recently, just as of last year, Cloud2Ground, you took on some responsibility for the support and development of and the commercial licensing of what Packetcraft was doing in Bluetooth LE audio, LE on the protocol stack. And there was agreement, I think, with Synaptics that who had acquired uh, Packetcraft. So Cloud2Ground now, as I understand it, is providing all that engineering support and licensing to continue some of the development that was already started through Packetcraft. Is that where some of these synergies are coming with other opportunities? And I know you've created some products on your own, but so that's kind of elevated you into a position where you have a little bit more overview and control or support for some of these things in a somewhat independent way, I think, from something like a stack that you have to buy anywhere. Uh, you're sort of tied into a stack that somebody else is selling you, and then you're stuck there for life. Is that more or less what's been happening for you in the last year? Or things have expanded a little bit based on that, or has that always been the case, and you're just moving it even farther forward?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit. I can explain a little bit about the Packetcraft stack, which was a great opportunity for us. Packetcraft was a company, been through a lot of different iterations. They started as a business called Ycentric, was a stack developer. They were acquired by ARM. We worked with them back when they were Ycentric. We worked with them when they were part of ARM. And then ARM spun that stack out as an open source stack. And Packetcraft was founded by the same team that had done that earlier work to continue with that open source stack. That then kind of like things often do, there was sort of a branch between a commercial and an open option there, and they continued to develop the commercial side of that stack. We continued to work with them through that. And as you mentioned, they were then acquired by Synaptics. As part of that Synaptics acquisition, that stack is really something that Synaptics is taking internally and going to be built around the need of Synaptic solutions. And so we stepped up to help existing customers, potentially new customers of that stack that are not using Synaptics chips, that still need support on that stack. And that's a stack which is widely licensed and used. A number of major semiconductor companies use that stack for their chips today. And we continue to work with those companies, support them. As you mentioned, it also provides an option. It's unique. So we'll get a little bit into some of our partners and different relationships and how you can, move towards developing a Bluetooth product.
Yeah.
Many chip companies have a solution that includes a stack, and that's great. That's a great way to start. We're partners with Nordic and Ezurio. We have our product, which we'll talk a little bit about, that is built on the Nordic and Ezurio solution. But one of the limitations there is that a lot of the low-level software in that solution is closed source, right? So you're sort of dependent on the stack that is provided to you by that vendor. It's a great stack. We love the Nordic stack and their solution, but there are cases where somebody might want to innovate, to change, to do custom behavior within the stack. And that's something that a stack like the Packetcraft stack gives you that ability. It's full source all the way to the bottom layer through the controller, and therefore we're able to do more custom builds. That stack essentially can run on any chip, although the process of porting it to a chip is not trivial. But it does run, for example, on Nordic chips. So this board here I'm showing on the screen, this is one of our Aurawave modules. Our normal software is an AT-based interface, like an old style AT modem interface that makes it very easy to set up a Bluetooth broadcast, connect to a broadcast, and stream audio. But we can also build the Packetcraft stack and run it on the same board. So if a customer has the need to have a very custom solution, if they want to do something, I don't necessarily encourage people to do things outside of the specification, but there are times where you want to kind of stretch the limits or do something unique, and it does open up that possibility. So we're not focused on just one stack, right? We have relationships with many chip companies, many different stack vendors. Our teams have worked on many different Bluetooth stacks. We maintain multiple different Bluetooth stacks today. And so they all bring different, pros and cons, right? Specifically in terms of our partnerships, we kind of divide those between, we talked about Bluetooth LE audio and the LE radios, the LE only path, right? And we're really heavily invested in Nordic and Ezurio in that space. This board that we produce, the Aurawave board, is based on an Ezurio module. It's based on a Nordic chip, the NRF5340. That's an LE only solution. So this is an appropriate board if you wanted to incorporate Bluetooth LE audio capability into a product, but it doesn't support that legacy Bluetooth Classic. Right.
Okay.
On the legacy Bluetooth Classic side, we partner with Qualcomm, we partner with Renesas, two great solutions there, chips and stacks that support full dual mode audio. So they can do both Bluetooth LE audio, the new standards, and they can support legacy Bluetooth Classic. The Packet Craft solution is a LE only solution. So runs on the
Got it.
Nordic chips, but you wouldn't be able to use it, say, on a mobile device or in a dual mode context. And then, and we won't focus on it too much here, but maybe the one other footnote there is there still is some demand for legacy only solutions. So we also partner with Texas Instruments and Microchip around some Bluetooth Classic solutions, which don't support LE audio. So if you're building a product that just needs that traditional point-to-point Bluetooth Classic use case, we have some solutions and stacks there too. So,
Okay.
we try to cover that full portfolio of what product manufacturers might need.
Well, that's actually very helpful. I mean, that kind of clearly lays out who's who and who can do what. With this board, I'm assuming this is the first time someone's put together a board like that's available commercially for developers, which makes it really nice. As you said, you can either follow the rules or make your own. So is that the case? And that makes it more of an independent type of approach where you're not stuck with an ODM's approach that they've already hardwired for you. Is that more or less the case, that you can do some early prototyping here and then kind of turn it into what you need to, or you can actually use the board as part of a product as well?
Yeah, our intention is to have a good path initially for prototyping and then be able to move that into volume production. So we have a great relationship with Ezurio. They build the module, the green PCB you see in the photo here, smaller module. And with them, we have a path where if you want to design your own board, we can help you design your own board either way. You're also able to license the software and have that incorporated directly in that module. So, first step is you're buying the modules, easy to prototype, easy for low volume. I think these can certainly be used for low volume products. It's intended to be fully ready to incorporate into a product. And then if you needed to go to higher volume or you need a smaller footprint, you can go to just the Ezurio module and you can license the software. And then we also can customize the software to meet your particular needs. We decided to do this board because we saw demand for, we worked with product companies that were really struggling to get into LE audio. They would be interested in the opportunities that the technology brings, but the stack is complicated. And so if you just go buy a dev board for a Bluetooth chip and you take that Bluetooth API and you try to go build a product, there's a lot of complexity there that you have to navigate in developing that application layer software. At the same time, on Bluetooth Classic, we had great success with a couple of similar modules that were in the market. We've seen customers love that, right? Where it's an AT command set. I type a couple commands. I can quickly establish Bluetooth audio connections. The board allows me to hook up analog audio directly to the module. So we saw that, okay, we have customers that are doing this with Bluetooth Classic. This has been a good model. Let's replicate that for LE audio. Let's make it really easy for companies to build an LE audio product. And so we've been incrementally adding. I can show a little bit more here. We've been incrementally adding new features and capabilities to this family. We started with the power amplifier version of the Ezurio module that gives additional range and signal quality. And with an analog board. So the board also includes an AKM analog to digital converter and allows you to, again, you can just connect your analog audio signals to or from the board, send some AT commands over a serial interface, and easily integrate to board. We just recently announced availability of a digital version. This is just a very streamlined, lower cost version that doesn't incorporate analog. Can be good if you don't need the analog side, if you're just building, for example, a digital streamer. We think that part of the logic for why we chose Auracast and broadcast as our first focus is that when you look at the adoption of Auracast technology, you have manufacturers rolling out hearing assistance devices, speakers, headphones, which today in the market support Auracast audio. And so this creates a demand for those streams that I mentioned all through our environment. Lecture halls, gyms, coffee shops, movie theaters, all these different places where we'll begin to need to see broadcast incorporated into their audio systems, right? So we think that there's a long tail there, right? There's a lot of opportunity for companies that traditionally have served all of these varying markets with specialized audio equipment. It's as simple as taking this board, putting it into your enclosure, and now you can incorporate support for that hearing assistance system or that personal audio system for people in that venue. So for many of those use cases, you may not need analog, right? You may be bringing the audio in digitally over Ethernet or Wi-Fi, and now you're just broadcasting it out over Bluetooth. So that's the intention of this board. And we also did a external antenna version. So you can see here, we've got some enclosures. We're going to be doing a set of articles on range testing and kind of show what's possible.
That's what I was going to ask about, what the range might be, what what is long range for you, do you think?
Yeah, I want to look at what is our. Let me make sure I quoted numbers here before I say off the top of my
That's all
head.
right. Because you mentioned the venues and the ideas, but the question, I know that anyone who uses Bluetooth knows there's ranges. So the question then is how much of a range can you? Since it's not point to point, it makes it easier. You're working with another device, so it sounds like you could make this extend it quite a ways. But
Yeah, and
what do
that
you?
personalization of audio, to that degree is going to be, from a market perspective, extremely, uh, really, really exciting for the not only the developers and the product companies, but also for the consumers, and so uh, I think that, it opens up a lot of possibilities in terms of developing products to specialize for these individual smaller markets.
Yeah. Any idea what you think the range is, Josh?
Yeah, I think we've quoted 100 meters. I want to. I was going to say I was going to pull the data sheet here and just make sure I don't misquote the numbers, but
100
it's
meters, maybe more, maybe more.
yeah. Certainly, it depends on RF environment.
Okay.
But
And
the
that's
external antenna adds capability there, as well as the power amplifier, right? So this version of I'll pull this up here.
yeah.
This version of the board adds a power amplifier, which also enhances the range.
Okay, so that's the intent, and then you talk about, and this I think is sort of, maybe it's not a dream, maybe it's actually more realistic. Where you're, multi-transporter transmitters that you mentioned at the bottom there on that slide. So you can expand that. Is that something that's realistic right now, or is that coming along, or is that part of what you're working with the Bluetooth SIG to try to develop?
That's right. There are some new enhancements to the standards and some new features which are coming along, which will help with those larger installations. So, as you can imagine, if you have a very large venue, you now need more than a single broadcaster, right? You may need
Yeah.
6 broadcasters, 6 radios, to cover the overall space. And so there's some new features that are coming up to help the coordination of those broadcasters, how a device moves through that space and selects. It's a similar challenge to Wi-Fi, right? But if you think about the market opportunity here, imagine you were in a world where nobody had a Wi-Fi installations in commercial facilities, and I told you there might be a business opportunity to develop Wi-Fi infrastructure hardware, right? I mean, we think that this is that kind of scale, right? As we see this technology rolled out across all of these different ways and places where it may be used.
Well, and I was thinking of you mentioned walking through an airport, moving from one zone to the next. Is that realistic?
Yes,
Like,
that's certainly the target use case. Yeah, that's right. So essentially, the receiver device will know that it's listening to a certain broadcast. That broadcast has an ID, and it's able to look at the fact that, oh, I see two instances of that same broadcast ID in my radio space, and I maybe see this one has a higher signal strength than this one, and so I connect to the one with the higher signal strength, and then as those signal strengths change, I do a transition, right? And it's the additional work is about making those transitions seamless, right? So that just like when you're roaming on a cell network or you're moving through a larger Wi-Fi installation, that's transparent to the user, right?
well, is it a question of transparency is there a way to, when you talk about having a dual use, is there an instance where you could think of it's switch back to classic traditional Bluetooth at one point because you can't find the signal that you need for the LE and then pick it up again, or is it just going to be all LE based in that instance? Is it how have you
For
conceived it?
Yeah, for the most part, those kind of large next gen installations would be LE only.
Yeah,
But there's always the ability, I think people are already looking at, okay, how do we make sure that users with older devices, whether
yeah,
that's an older mobile phone or older headphones, older hearing aids, is still part of the party, right? So there definitely are bridging technologies, and whether that's a mobile phone that can pick up an LE audio broadcast and now it can transmit it back over Bluetooth Classic to my headphones, right? That's a common example. So there's all sorts of ways you can bridge so that older devices can still be part of the ecosystem. But certainly the driver for this new technology is that it does open up these new use cases. So most of this new capability would be LE only. And we think
okay,
that's where you know, there's a combination of forces that are really driving adoption of these new standards. I think the standardization within the hearing assistance industry and even regulation about access to those technologies. Traditionally in the United States, there have been federal regulations about hearing assistance technologies and their availability in public spaces. So we see some momentum there that will drive adoption. And then that sort of leading the way. There's all these new opportunities, new use cases. As we see more things moving over to LE audio, I think we'll reach a critical mass point, right, where it really won't make sense to continue to rely on Bluetooth Classic.
right.
Costs are reduced if we're able to drop the older technology. There's really nothing say no, there's almost nothing done today with Bluetooth Classic except that kind of final audio use case, right? So this is the last sort of transition that we need to make within the Bluetooth world to kind of move everything over to the new radio architecture, which is greatly improved. It's a simplified architecture. It's more power efficient. It's more cost efficient. So, and
I
I
think
think
that,
this is the key driver for that.
yeah, I think that's the question I have. Okay, so you've developed a nice little development board. There's an interface. How, if I buy it, how much can I use that? I mean, I can dive as deep as I want to into that through whatever GUI or control that you give me to do the design work, or is it something that you work together with someone to create a protocol, or is it sort of half and half, or whatever needs to be done?
Yeah, our focus with the board, when you order it, say from DigiKey, what you
Yeah.
get is something that's designed to be very simple. So we
Hmm.
really have emphasized simplicity. With the AT interface, there is a AT command doc. You download the AT command doc from our website or Ezurio's website. It's publicly available, and you'll
Hmm.
see there the different commands that you can do with the board. And we've really tried to keep that focused on the primary use cases of Auracast, creating a stream, naming that stream, configuring that stream, whether that's a stereo stream for stereo earbuds, or maybe it's two mono streams. A common use case for this new technology is multiple language support. So you might have an environment where you want to have a stream in English and a stream in Spanish. right? And so we support that where you can tag each stream with a language and say that it's a mono stream. It'll be rendered as stereo by the other side, but a user can then quickly switch. And I mentioned that ease of connection and switching.
Yeah.
There was a demo at CES that the Bluetooth SIG put together at the Assisted Listening Pavilion, I think it was called. And we were there. We set up some broadcasts in parallel with theirs, and we did some tests. And it's really cool to see how transparent and seamless that you can switch between those different languages or different streams. Really, just a very fast, seamless process. So.
Well, that's good. So, you've built this and you're working with several people, I'm sure, who are developing products. Is there any one story that sort of stands out to you that were during the development process with a customer that sort of highlights everything that you've been talking about, or at least one significant part of that?
Well, we see a lot of innovation today in this space. People sort of recognizing the potential, and so we've been working with a number of interesting companies that are really looking at where this is going. Right? What will future LE audio installations look like? How that will be incorporated. Um, Thinking about stories, you mentioned earlier about the challenges of working with an ODM versus sort of doing
Yeah.
stuff in-house. That reminds me of a story that I was going to share. We have a customer that traditionally had gone to an overseas ODM for their Bluetooth product designs. And in the older, model with Bluetooth Classic, relatively simple, single function devices, pretty straightforward stack. The number of things you could do with the Bluetooth device was pretty limited. And so for them, that worked pretty well. Those ODMs were able to hand them a Bluetooth device. It sort of did what it was supposed to do. It was interoperable with the other products, but it was a little bit of a closed solution for them. They didn't have any visibility into the firmware. They didn't have any ability to update the firmware of their products in the field or offer their customers bug fixes, security fixes. And I think we see now, and we're working with them now on understanding that, hey, it's really important to bring more of this stuff in-house so that you have the ability to continue to add capability to the software, that you have the ability to address security concerns in some regulatory schemes that's required now, right? That devices are able to be patched and security fixes, and so it's becoming more difficult to be reliant on a third party that provides you with a black box, right? And you don't have the ability to add new features. You don't have the ability to update firmware for your customers.
Got it. So, Dave, have you experienced some of this development work in your work? I mean, or examples
Yeah.
like that as well?
I was just gonna say that it's not always ODM doesn't necessarily even have the black box within their. They're not actually the third party. The third party's somebody down the street, like a
That's right.
Sunny Tech or something like that. So, yeah, and it's usually just replicate, copy and paste from the last product is what the ODMs. But that's not necessarily their fault. They're so busy building and shipping. So if the brand wants to take control over this, like Josh just said, they really need to take charge and find a partner to deliver on these upgradable over the air possibilities that are becoming enabled now.
Because I think in the past it was you didn't have that option, honestly, to be that, you were dependent on an ODM who had a stack, and it, like you say, it could have been something that was made for something completely different with the wrong flags thrown, and then nothing worked. Yeah. So
Yeah, we've certainly had those, experiences where we have a company call us and say, we have a product, but it doesn't work with XYZ, right? It doesn't work with this particular model of iPhone, or it doesn't work with these headphones, right? And
right.
those interoperability challenges, you get in there, and then you often find, okay, you really need to be able to adjust some of the things on the inside, right?
Yeah.
And that's a
Yeah.
lot harder if you've got a black box.
Yeah. I've got a question for Steve. Steve, Link Play has WIM. Uh, is this something that WIM is looking at?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, with the product and the functionality expanding, I just look at the Auracast broadcast installations. As that becomes more and more mainstream, if you will, not only from the product side but also from the broadcast side. To me is going to be an exciting feature that we're definitely going to be looking at in our portfolio of products. So, things continue to develop, and again, it's the customization for the individuals that is really what people are looking for, and that's the exciting thing. Whether it's you talk about airports, but think about having some type of home theater system at home where you've got somebody that doesn't quite hear as well as others. They can have some of these devices, and the experience that they have is going to be at a much higher level than what it was before. So that really is an exciting thing from a product perspective.
And I think too, when the first time when well, maybe it's just my age, but when you think of Bluetooth, you think of earphones or something. It's not necessarily what we're talking. We're talking about, and the WIM is not an earphone. It's a speaker, a streamer, and it's a speaker
Yeah.
device with it embedded. So it is that opportunity, I think, to make it into a network that is
Yeah. I mean,
wireless.
again, when you look at the portfolio and if you will, the mesh networking of products, it just gives another feature that I think is very, very powerful from a user experience perspective. Because at the end of the day, Josh, you touched upon something that I think is very relevant. The information that's coming out from these broadcasts, from a signal strength perspective, if it's capable of picking up, if you will, the best signal, that experience is going to be great. And if it's botchy, if you will, where you walk from one location to another and isn't that smooth transition, people are going to get, they're not going to have a good experience, and that's where it's going to fall down. So I really think that, as the technology rolls out, that seamless transition, through these broadcasts, I think is going to be an extremely exciting thing from a product perspective.
Yeah, I agree. Quick question. You mentioned some chip, manufacturer, SoCs, what have you. Are you working? It sounds like you must be working very closely with a lot of chip manufacturers and, SoC providers. Is that pretty much an ongoing thing for you? You have to make sure you can work with anything that's on the market at the moment. You mentioned that there's sort of divisions in that. You said primarily you're with Qualcomm. It's a dual mode solution, and maybe TI is a legacy still. But do you see, are you still working with producing more LE options out there on different methods, or is it just purely right now with Nordic or anybody else?
Yeah, we are, again, because we try to be a stakeholder in the Bluetooth ecosystem, right? So our goal is to be able to support all of the different technologies, either the legacy technology, the new technology. We'd like to be able to support and work with any stack. Our team is largely made up of senior engineers. These guys and girls are able to pick up and work with just about any Bluetooth stack out there. So we really try to be flexible in terms of what we work with. We're happy to work with a product company that selects a vendor that we don't already have a relationship with. That's not a problem. But certainly in terms of our business model, it's been great to have those relationships where we do the stack, right? So if we are developing the stack or we're working directly with a semiconductor company around their SoC, and we have a team with that knowledge, then that really enhances what we can do for the end customers on that chip. And so that's really our favorite relationship, right? Where we work directly with the semi, we working with them to develop their solutions, and then they, with us, bring us to a product company that needs to integrate those solutions to build a product. So so those relationships are important, and we're always looking for new, partners in that way. We have some new ones coming online. I don't want to name any names yet, but we do have some new ones coming online. I would say, I see from our position in the market where we are talking to the semiconductor companies, there are a lot of people that were kind of waiting. We went through this. The last 5 years has been a pretty wild time in the world, right? And so as these things have been rolling out, there's a lot of companies that have been kind of watching to see, okay, how fast is this going to move? When do I need to be where I need to be, right, to keep up with everybody? So I think there are some companies that are now, picking up the pace and saying, hey, we need to get products out into the market. We need to add support in our portfolio. So I think you're going to see more chips, more options, more stacks. We also see that on the product side, right? More and more companies are starting to put out products with the Auracast logo on the packaging, or talking about these new capabilities as a fundamental part of their products. So, we see that momentum, and we want to continue to expand what we can offer right across the portfolio. So.
Yeah. So when you look at you mentioned, I think you said Qualcomm is doing dual mode, TI is doing classic. Is there reasons for that, or they just haven't? I mean, when you look at what are the differences between them? Is it something that's fundamental, or is it just that they haven't got the business case themselves to start changing what they do? Qualcomm can sell more chips because it's dual mode and they can charge for it, and
No,
TI.
I would say really those comments are more about our relationships with those companies, right? And so,
Okay,
um,
all right, all right.
like with Texas Instruments, they do have an LE only product line. But
Okay, all right.
Texas Instruments uses a stack that we support, and
Okay,
we're the exclusive partner. If a company needs to use that stack and they want to port
got
it
it.
to a new microcontroller, they want to enhance it, we're an exclusive partner to TI to be able to customize that stack. So, um,
Got it. Okay.
those things I laid out are kind of really built around our relationships. We're a microchip partner. We have exclusive access to develop code that runs directly on one of microchip's products called a BM83. And so we have some unique relationships there that we can leverage for our customers. That doesn't mean that those companies don't also have other things in their portfolio. Same in the inverse with, I mentioned Qualcomm and Renesas, both on dual mode,
Yeah.
both also have LE only um, options, but Qualcomm traditionally has been a pretty important player in the Bluetooth space, certainly because of their relationship on the mobile device side, right? And so they've been a dominant player in the chips that go in mobile devices, and certainly, as the mobile world goes, so goes everybody else, right? You build Bluetooth products, they need to work with Android and iOS based mobile phones, and so that kind of trickles down in terms of what they're doing is very important, right, in the
Yeah.
space.
Got it.
Um,
Yeah, it makes
so
sense. That's good to know, because I was curious to see if there was some sort of limitation, but there isn't. It's just your relationship at this point is and you're giving custom made stacks and protocols for them, which is good. But
correct.
Yeah.
they have other options as well. So
Maybe from a larger perspective, maybe your opinion is when is Apple gonna release an LE Audio Auracast enabled device?
this is a
And
good
I've
question.
heard some reasons why they're not, but maybe you just want to let our audience know what you think about that situation, because that really limits
Yeah.
U.S. market.
It's a great question, and I wish I wish I had the answer. I mean, I think it's my opinion that they can't ignore it forever. I mean, the demand, again, coming from the hearing assistance space, from the increasing adoption here. Um, Apple traditionally used proprietary solutions that bear some similarity. I mean, my understanding is I can't say too much, but they were doing things in a similar way using proprietary solution, right? And so I think that may be part of why there's some reluctance to make that transition, is they're sort of already invested in their proprietary solutions. That's sort of the Apple way, right? Is to sort of prefer a well-crafted proprietary solution. But I just think that I know that there's a lot of concern about when that's going to happen, but I think it is inevitable, right? I don't see them being able to hold out. I don't see this as something where it will or won't happen. It's just going to be a matter of time as the rest of the market comes around. And if you look at the adoption timeline for Bluetooth Classic Audio, A2DP, it also took quite a while. It took quite a while before products got out, and then even then they weren't great, and it took a little longer until they were actually compelling user experiences. And then, we've kind of gotten to the point where Bluetooth works and people are pretty happy with the experience. Certainly audiophiles and stuff always would have, reasons to complain, but we've seen huge improvements with this new standard, and I think we will see that adoption, continue. It just takes time. And for us in the middle of the ecosystem working on the spec side, that often feels like an eternity, right? You have people that have been working on this technology 6-7 years now, right? So for us, we're ready to see this be broadly adopted in the market, but it takes time.
Sure. Thanks.
So coming up next for Aurawave, you have a new firmware coming out next month in May of 2026. And anything else coming up that Cloud2Ground is going to be involved in the near future here that we might be able to talk about?
Yeah, the new firmware is exciting, as we're continuing to incrementally add capability to this platform. The Aurawave platform is still our only kind of public product that we're working on today. We have other stuff sort of in the works behind the scenes, but I can't get into that too much. But we
Okay.
are always looking for more opportunities. With the incremental additions to the firmware for Aurawave, our goal is to continue to expand the use cases that it can cover. So today it's really focused on being a broadcast device as a source. This new release will allow it to be a sync. So currently today you can do a demo mode that allows you to do end-to-end connections with the board, but this kind of adds that as a first class part of the AT interface. And then, as I mentioned in this slide, and we talked a little bit about kind of what's next, we plan to add more capabilities around wireless speaker type use cases. So not just broadcast, but also point to point. And support for larger installations. So we think those are the two kind of main areas that we're going to continue to expand for this platform. And then,
Okay.
our focus is always divided between the great work that our clients are doing and the product companies we work with, the semiconductor companies we work with. That's where we put most of our time and energy. And then these things, we kind of think of things like the Aurawave board as an opportunity to show our passion and our knowledge of the things that we do. But we're a services company, right, rather than a product company.
Yeah, well, good. It was really good. Thanks for being with us today. I appreciate that. And did I miss anything there, Steve or Dave?
No, I think that the information was very, very good and insightful. Josh, really, really appreciate all of the data, and I mean it's an exciting time. I think the next couple of years will be, as it gets readily adopted, I think it's going to be exciting for the product side. That to me is really what I think, the APDA is focused on is obviously making sure that all the individuals are looking at products. They don't discount what this technology is capable of doing. And from a consumer, as we all get older and we start looking at the devices that's going to help us have that user experience improved. It's like I said, a very exciting time. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Yeah, my pleasure. Really appreciate it. I agree. It is a very exciting time, and I think now's the time, right, for companies to start to invest in this area as it's coming soon.
That's great. Well, and thank you, Dave. Thank you, Steve, as well, and Josh, and thanks everyone else who helped us put this one on today. Next week, actually, I think we're going to be talking with Henry Huang from the Bluetooth SIG. So we'll get some more interest and information on Auracast from him and what's coming up there too. And then I think a month later in June, we're going to do a little roundtable discussion. We're not sure what that topic is yet. We'll just sort of throw it out there and see what goes on. But we appreciate your time here. Thanks again. I'm going to one more time remind people who would like to join us in our LinkedIn group or visit us on the webpage or become a become a sponsor. We are a nonprofit and depend on the loyalty and the generosity of our membership and our sponsors. So thank you very much for everybody. I don't know if I was able to share that screen, but I think I got it shared. And thanks again. All
Yeah,
right.
thank you guys. Thanks, Roger, Steve,
And
Dave. Thanks for having me.
we'll see you soon, everyone who joined us, and check us out online. We're constantly updating our YouTube channel. So thanks again, and take care, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.